Good morning. It is a new vlog. Welcome to today's Friday teacher tip on a Saturday. I just returned from the National Science Teachers Association conference in North Carolina. It was in Winston-Salem, and I am going to share with you today my entire workshop that I provided to the teachers there. It's on Let's Go Global, Project-Based Learning Reimagined. So this is an innovative take on the idea of project-based learning. Many of you have already sat through workshops on how to do project-based learning. Maybe you received what you needed to get started. Maybe you're still feeling like there's a lot of management issues that you're experiencing. If you are having any questions about project-based learning, please comment on the video below with your email address and I will send you some information. We can talk back and forth. I'd love to help you get started or fix any issues that you're experiencing. But this particular workshop was not just on that topic, although I did provide those resources and I'll link them all below. This was on how can you meet the needs of the different students that we have sitting in front of us in the last 5 years who struggle to find motivation for learning. How can you use global connections with human beings across the United States and in other parts of the world to get your students engaged in learning and help them retain what they're learning about? So without ado, I'm going to go ahead and share with you the entire conference workshop from beginning to end. I hope you enjoy this. Get yourself a cup of coffee, get yourself your favorite soda or favorite drink, and have a seat, cuddle up, and enjoy this workshop. I am in downtown Winston-Salem. I am presenting at a conference tomorrow, so I am here the night before so that I can get everything ready and just take my time and settle in. And I'm excited because my presentation is on Friday, so I will get to see a few of the presenters that are happening and then go do my thing. It is all about my trip to Zimbabwe and how I've used it to structure project-based learning in my classroom. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping that it's a hit. I hope people enjoy it. I hope that they get what they're hoping to get out of it. It's always difficult to know, because you don't know who you're going to have in the room, if you're bringing them what they truly want. But I'm going to try my best, and I will offer for people to get in contact with me if they would like more information. So I'm just gonna head out and get some dinner, and then I'm gonna go back to my room and look over my notes and just sort of get my brain in the game. If you want to go ahead to the bit.ly, there is a Mentimeter poll. It comes up as an agenda, and it's right here in the top box. Just so I can have an idea of how much experience you guys have with project-based learning.
We're
Thank you.
Here.
I appreciate it. Well, mostly science teachers. Well, you're sitting in the back, so I'll just do what I do with my students who sit in the back. I'm just paying attention to you all. You who want to learn, come up front. My name is Charlotte Ludoff. I teach 4th grade, all subject areas right now, although I have taught a little bit of everything from pre-K all the way up through 8th grade. I did 4 years of middle school last year. So I am going to bring you what I know about project-based learning from my own experience, But I'm hoping that if anybody has experience that they'd like to share or other ideas, that this can be more of a conversation and we can just collaborate with each other today, because none of us have all the information, right? So we all have different backgrounds. I am in my 27th year of teaching, and we are in a very rural community. We are where you go to hunt bear. Our students are really low income, a lot of them, and most of them have not taken trips away from where they are. So one of the things that excites me about project-based learning is the ability to bring my students along with me wherever I go, virtually, experientially. And I hope that at the end of the session today, the one thing that you take away with you is the importance of connecting your students to people in other places. Because I really believe that connecting students to people is key to helping them remember what they're learning. So that's the main focus of my presentation today. That's the innovative part. And then we'll go ahead and get into the agenda. The information that you need to take home with you is all right here. So we're just going to work our way down through here and see how far we can get. But there's tons of resources on here for you. Each one of these links, a lot of them open up to multiple resources. So this is kind of a little treasure trove for you that you can take back and share with your team. The link is shareable, so feel free to share away. I was part of Go Global NC. Do any of you know what that is? Okay, so if you're not familiar with it, it's a teacher professional development experience that you can sign up for. And there's multiple grants that pay for you to go on this experience. If you're a teacher of the year, you're automatically invited. But I went through the Simple Gifts Fund, and the Simple Gifts Fund is just like for rural counties or isolated counties to try to give people the opportunities to bring back to their students. And I went in I was accepted in 2021. Normally you're accepted in the late winter, and then you have some experiences where they teach you, and then you have an orientation, and then you go that summer. But because of COVID, we didn't go until the following year. So the really cool thing about my experience that was unique was I had an entire year of professional development. But even if you just go the normal route, it basically almost fulfills all of your requirements that you need to renew your license. There's so many things that you do that you can just put down for everything. So I'd highly recommend it. They are in the stages of application for South Korea for this year. Right now, there are certain counties, and I'll show you when we get down to that part, that are invited for the Borchardt, I think it's called, application, that grant. And if you're not in one of those counties though, there'll be other things that are offered like in the next few months. So keep your eye out on the link that I gave you if you're interested in it. And also at the end, you can put your name on an email list, and every time I get an email about what's happening, I'll forward it on to you. So, all right, I'm gonna start off with a little story, and then we'll look at your poll results. When I go on trips, one of my favorite things to journal about is the people that we meet. You can learn so much about a place by talking to people. The person in the restaurant or the cashier, doesn't really matter who it is. People are connections to what's real. If you think about it, isn't it true that the memories that you have of people are the things that stick with you long after you forget the little details of the places that you've been? One of the most interesting people that I met on my trip to Zimbabwe was our bus driver. His name was Reason. He comes from a tribe called Ndebele, and they name their children after a character trait that they hope they'll grow into as they mature. So reason as in having good reasoning skills. Reason knew everything about the land. And I was really impressed by this because he only had a 5th grade education. There you have to go through primary school, that's required. But then once you get to 5th or 6th grade, you can choose whether you're gonna go to university, and then you continue on, or you're done and you just go into the workforce. But unfortunately, the workforce is very slim. So you may have lots of skills, but you may not be able to find a job. And a lot of people are just selling things on the markets and on the streets to make a living. But Reason knew which plants were medicine and which could be eaten safely. He also knew facts about all the wildlife in the area. And having only a 5th grade education, being able to do all those things, I thought that was pretty impressive. One of the things I noticed about the people in Zimbabwe was everybody valued education. Can you imagine? When the kids came to school, even though they couldn't all speak English because they had their tribal languages and they were trying to learn English there at school, they were sitting at attention, eager to learn. They did not have enough books, so the teacher would project something and they would copy everything into their notebooks. Everything. Like they copy the passage, they copy the questions, and then they write the answers. This was the norm for them. And they thought, they acted like they loved it. Even the little ones were excited to do it. So it was a very big eye-opener for me, knowing that these kids, most likely, percentage-wise, when they finish school, may not have any kind of employment, but yet it's so important to them to become an educated citizen because that's what their country values. I remember one day when we were on safari, here I am in the middle of the Hawaii National Forest on the trip of my lifetime, and I'm bundled up because it's really cold in the mornings there before the sun comes all the way up. And I'm bundled up and the Jeep is rumbling and I still am jet lagged. And I'm so excited to be there and to see all the animals, but yet I'm falling asleep. And I think a lot of our students are like that too. Like, it's not that they don't want to learn, it's not that they have no interest in anything, but they are dealing with so many other situations that might take their attention away from learning. One of my little guys this year, he has a mom with terminal cancer, and she's often away for treatments, and he just is having a lot of problems paying attention in class. Another one has a parent that's in jail. Another one is going through a custody argument. That's just a few stories, but I'm sure in your minds you're probably sitting there thinking of some stories of your own, of the kids that are sitting in front of you every day. So when we think about this, the big question is, how do we help these kids still learn what they need to learn? How do we still teach them the North Carolina Standard course of study? How do we get them engaged? How do we get them interested? That's where project-based learning comes in, and that's where I think that in exposing kids to other people of other cultures, it's such a motivation factor for them. I also think that by interacting with people around the world, our kids can learn so much vocabulary that maybe they are not getting, have experiences beyond what their parents are able to take them on. It's just a wealth of possibilities for a teacher pretty much anywhere in North Carolina, but especially in a small rural community like mine. Human connection is a really powerful learning tool. That's what I hope that you remember today. All right, so let's take a look at your experience and see what we're working with here. If you just got here, the presentation link is bit.ly/Let's Go Global PBL. And if you want to come up and grab it, you can. Some people had to come up. There's a Mentimeter poll. It is right here on your agenda in the top, right there. All right, so I asked you, what's your comfort level with project-based learning? And let's see what we said so far. Well, maybe, maybe not. We haven't encountered an unexpected error. Okay, hold on. Let's try signing in again and see if it works. If not, we'll just come back to it. Or you guys can tell me we're a small group. I wonder if I'm even, let me make sure I'm in, yeah, I'm still logged in to the internet anyway. So let's just do show of hands because I'm not sure if this is the accurate one or not, if you don't mind. So who considers themselves to be a newbie at project-based learning? Know a little bit? Who thinks it sounds cool but is not really sure how to start it? Okay, who's tried it and it didn't go so well? Thank you for being honest, because I think one of the biggest things about project-based learning is being willing to fail and try again. Because it's kind of a big messy thing and it's hard to manage, and that's why a lot of teachers are like, I would love to do that, but I have no idea. Like, where do I start? So hopefully I'll give you some resources today. And let's see, who feels like they know a lot and they want to learn the next thing? Okay. All right, thanks for sharing. And then the other thing is, it asks what you would like to learn today. Just go around and tell me what you would, because I want to make sure that this is valuable to you and that you're not just sitting in here and going away with the same ideas that you had when you came in. So what would you guys like from me today?
I just love hearing the different ideas of how you structured PBL, what projects you've done, and how you did it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think the same. I think we work in the same district. We have a lot of experience in our schools with the culture of STEM and PBLs. And our teachers are doing a lot of that. And it's always interesting to see other people's perspectives and what they're doing.
Okay. So just kind of.
After that, I just like to meet people who are doing it as well, and that way, because they take a lot of time to generate and to create. So
Yes.
I just want to have a swap.
Yeah, I think that's great. And please, take my email that's in this information and email me with any questions that you have, or if you want another, like mine, you're like, I'm working on this, but I don't know how to make this work. I love to do stuff like that, so feel free to send me a message anytime you're doing something. Did you have anything to add that you wanted? Okay. How about you back there? You good? Okay. Okay. All right. So the basic idea behind project-based learning is that you're still teaching the standards. You're starting with the standards like you always do when you plan, but then thinking kind of how can you go broader? How can you connect to things that are in real life that the kids would want to know about? And it has to have a driving question. That's the biggest thing. There has to be something that you're trying to figure out together as a class, or if you're doing individual projects, like group projects, whatever, that those students really care about answering that question. I think that's the big thing. If they don't care about answering the question, then they're not going to put the work in. And I think that if they care about it, and then you can bring in other resources that you can connect to, say, a museum, a person in the museum. You can connect to people from a trip. Like in my example, I met all of these people that I'm going to show you in a minute. I can email someone and we can do a Zoom call, and they can tell you what it's like there. Anything that you can connect to that is real for them, then they're going to see a reason for learning it. And so you're doing a project, but yet you're still satisfying the requirements. And then you just have to think about what kind of grades can I take from this, so I'm not getting myself in trouble with the people that are in charge, and I'm still moving towards being ready for whatever assessments we need to do for that grade level and whatever expectations that they need. So that's like the big umbrella of all of it. But then there are resources, and I think one of the things people get bogged down with is, what do I do for like rubrics for these projects? What do I do for planning? So I gave you a planning template. This is just one. Down here in the resource section, there are some more. The Buck Institute has all kinds of project planning guides. So when you open it up, this is all free. Everything here is free. So you go to the resource section, and they have project design rubric, project checklist that you should think about, project-based teaching rubric, English language learner scaffold, so how you can support students that have English barriers. That's the project planner right there that I printed out for you. Community partner outreach, so it's often good to involve people in your community. And then here is a way to work and refine your driving question. And then there's a storyboard, which is good for any age group, that you can draw pictures of the different parts of the project as you're doing them, or before as a pre-planning, or afterwards as a reflection. And then there's an assessment map. So all of these things here will really help you get organized with your project. Okay, so that is all there for you. And I will show you some more as we go on. But for right now, I want to go ahead and share with you my slides from my trip and tell you a little bit about how I turned this into project-based learning in my classroom. And this link is on there for you if you want to look at it later. In April of 2021, I was chosen by the Simple Gifts Fund to participate in Go Global Teachers Victoria Falls. It included a year of professional development to get background information on Zimbabwe education, economy, and culture. Traveling to Zimbabwe to experience the culture, history, the education system, and the environment. A follow-up workshop where teachers reflected on their experience and then shared their lessons, which I thought that was like one of the greatest parts, was being able to collaborate. Like you said,
being able to swap with other people. And everybody who does this, like, I could not believe the caliber of the people that were in my cohort group. Like, I was just like, these are some great teachers that I got to rub shoulders with for that 2-week program, and still am in contact with now, and we share things with each other. So there are curriculum units, lesson plans, and projects that I got, and I included the entire file. So every teacher that went on that trip has a folder with their lesson plans for their projects of what they did after they left. Now, it wasn't all science. There were, just elementary teachers with varied subjects. There's literacy, there's social studies, there's interdisciplinary art, everything's in there. So there's something for everyone, and feel free to share any of that stuff. It's common, like it's not copyrighted or anything. You can share that with any teachers in the state that you'd like to. All right, so here is a little bit about my experience. There's me getting out of the airport at Zimbabwe. And this is a class that I visited at Eveline Girls School. This was their science class. And I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but that is an entire room full of students right next to each other on stools. And there was one set of lab materials with the professor at the front. And all of these girls are just watching them do the lab and copying everything into their notebooks. It was really amazing to see how involved they were despite their lack of resources. Okay? Victoria Falls is a natural wonder that is called Mose Otunya, which means smoke that thunders in their local language. It's located close to some of the most fascinating places in Zimbabwe. Victoria Falls is the world's largest sheet of falling water. It's twice the height of North America's Niagara Falls, and the only taller waterfall is Iguazu Falls in South America. It is 108 meters tall and 1,708 meters wide. 500 million liters of water fall over it every minute. That's the equivalent of 200 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Now, when you look at this, you're just like, wow, that's such an incredible thing to get to go see. In my mind, and maybe in yours too, I'm thinking 8th grade hydrosphere. So this right here is the beginning of a project, because the most fascinating part of this is right here in Victoria Falls, where this is located, they have a water shortage. Now, doesn't that start some questions? Isn't that something your students might be interested in knowing, like, why do they have a water shortage when all of this water is right here? So it tells you a lot about their infrastructure, their ability to clean the water, those kinds of things all go along with our 8th grade curriculum. And I think if you even look in like maybe 5th grade, and then if you go up to Earth and Environmental, it's all in there. There's a lot of standards you can connect to with that. Here, this is the bridge between Zimbabwe and Zambia, and people would walk across that bridge. It's like a half a day's journey to the grocery store, and they would put everything in bags and carry things on their head and walk all the way back. So it was like one day's journey to get the things that they needed. The Zambezi River here is the 4th largest in the African continent and crosses 6 different nations. Its amazing journey covers 2,700 kilometers. Along the way, you can see wildlife and participate in many activities. Victoria Falls is the boundary dividing the upper and middle parts of the Zambezi. It divides Zambia and Zimbabwe. Local Victoria Falls villagers walk across the bridge to do their grocery shopping. And then here are some people that I met in one of the little villages in Victoria Falls. So I got to visit a rural school there, and I got to visit a private school there. And I worked in both of them a little bit for a day. Well, I worked in this one for a day, and I worked in the other one for like 3 or 4 different days and presented some things with their teachers. And it really drives home the point of how different and inequitable it is. So the children that are in this village, they walk to their school, and I'll show you some pictures of it in a little bit. It's dirt. They do have desks. The desks were donated. A lot of things come from the United States, are shipped over by donors, They have trusts that are interested in them. I think Mother Africa Trust is one of them. Eden Spring Trust is another one that sends things over, like faith-based trust groups. But they run everything off of solar energy. So right there, you have another connection, you know. They have a community garden. So their community garden is part of what they use to feed the children at lunch, but it's also a place where the kids can go and learn about growing food, so that later on they'll have a skill that they can use in their own lives, regardless of what they end up doing. So there is a lot of hands-on learning that's going on as a result of them not having everything that they need, just out of necessity. Another thing that was really cool was the parents have to take turns being the custodial staff to have their child there. And the parents have to take turns cooking the food in the cafeteria, which is a big, like, I say tent, but it's not really a tent. It's like twigs in like an enclosure, and it's open on the sides, and they have like a little pot in the middle of it, and that's where they cook their food. And so you have to, in order for your child to go, there's like a small fees. The school fee is like $25 per semester per child, which that's US dollars, so that's quite a bit of their money. But you also have to sign up for these rotations because they don't have money to be able to hire anyone to do these jobs. So that kind of brings an interdisciplinary project in if you want to talk to students about the differences between schools here and schools there, and then you can bring in the science as you're doing that. You know, what are some of the things that they do to grow their food? You know, what is their climate like there? What kinds of food can they grow easily there? That kind of thing can all go along with our standards. Here's the local market. When you see this picture and you look at all these things, is there anything, can you see it? Can we turn the lights out or not? They won't let us turn them out.
We'll turn them off.
Okay. You're going to get me in trouble, aren't you?
The only thing is I don't know what to
Give her an experiment.
There you go. Okay, when you look at this market, what strikes you? Like, what do you notice?
Nothing's in packages.
Everything's on the floor.
Okay. What did you say?
Nothing's in packages.
Okay, no packages.
No refrigeration.
Okay. Anything else? Is there anything science-y that jumps out at you? How can you relate any of this to science? When I look at this, I see some recycled materials. I see processes for dyeing fabrics that could be connected, and you can talk to some of the locals who do those things, and that would be a really cool, like, chemistry kind of conversation, right? At the elementary level, you wouldn't have to call it chemistry, but that's what it is, you know? So this is the livelihood of a person who does not have another job. Like, this is how they make a lot of their money. And I was amazed when I went into these homes that some of the people let us go in and see their home. They weren't really living badly, but everything that they had, they made. It was so funny, we got off of the plane and we were driving into Bulawayo, which is a city nearby, when we first got there. And we asked the driver, why are there cows walking around everywhere? Is that just like what they do and then they call them home at night? And he laughed and he said, no, he said, what happens is people use everything that they can find. So when people are really needing something, sometimes people will steal fencing so that they can make what they need to make. And then the cows get out and they just wander in the city. You know, so those are issues that you can talk about with the students and maybe come up with some kind of a project out of that. So there's so many, it's like when you go to another place, if you really slow down and think about everything, there are so many projects that can connect to what we already have to teach, but we just have to see it when we're looking. We have to look hard. And sometimes if you show students some things, they can see it, you know, because they don't have all of those like, well, you have to teach this standard, da 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 dot, such and such. You know what I mean? Like they don't think like that. They're just like, oh, cool. You know, what that looks like it's made out of this. What is that? Is that what it is? You know, what did they make? How did they do that? You know? So that's your local market. This is the kitchen of the village that we visited, the rural village, the poor village. And they keep their dishes in the kitchen, but they cook and eat outside of the kitchen because it's too hot. That's actually where they meet for important business matters. So the way their structure is set up, one man is the father of these families in the village. And he might have more than one village because they practice polygamy. And so the more wealthy you are, the more villages you have, because you have to be able to take care of them, right? So the father travels around to these different villages. This is the guy who's put in charge when the father's not there. And so he is kind of doing the business and helping the head mother, the main mother, that basically all of her children are in that village, or her children's children. When people come and let's say that they wanted to buy something off the villagers, they could sit in the kitchen and have a business deal. If they wanted to marry someone, they would sit in the kitchen and have a little business deal about how many cows we're going to exchange for all of this, that kind of thing. So that's just cool. That's more of a social studies connection. If you think real hard, maybe you could put some science in there, but I just thought that was neat. Different. Here is the school that I was talking about. It's called Javelani Primary School. And these are two little boys that I read with. And their teacher wasn't there that day. So we all just spread out and took over and read their little readers with them. And this was recess in this dirt here. And you can see them copying. I told you they have notebooks and they copy everything. That's what they were doing there. And so that is the rural school. Here is the village. They were making something called sadza, which is a grain, which you can definitely connect to like natural resources. How do we use our natural resources? How do people adapt to different environments to survive, that kind of thing? They were grinding the sadza to make kind of like a sort of a pancake. They also make like a grits out of it, depending on how finely they ground it. And then there's the pot I was telling you about that they cook all the lunches on. And this is part of the garden, so that's their lemon and lime trees, but they have a lot of other types of vegetables and things. And the interesting part about Zimbabwe is that they have a similar climate to like the eastern part of North Carolina, where we're from. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of the things that we can grow, they can grow too. This is the head mother of the village. She's sitting here creating recycled baskets. They are made out of the bags that sadza is sold in. So they take them and they strip them off, and they also combine them with the palm leaves, and they make strips and they braid all of that. They dye it and then they wrap it, coil it, and she stitches it and makes these baskets. One of those baskets is about $25 US. So that one basket will pay for school fees for one child for one semester. So that's how they take care of their school fees. So as you can imagine, while I was there, I bought a lot of baskets. And there's one of the little girls that I met. These kind of stories, like kids think about other places that they've heard about, and they may not be able to like picture what it's actually like, but being able to go somewhere and show it to them, bring it back, say this is what it's like, and even arrange to have a phone call or something. Like there are people in town who can connect you to even these rural villages that don't have very much, so that you can continue to have communication with them and use it as part of your lessons. And here's the school that's right down the road. It's Victoria Falls Primary School, and that's the private school. So that's by tuition. They have obviously a lot more things. It's nicer. It has regular electricity. They're not running on solar for everything. They had a grant for a STEM program. So they had a computer building that the students went to, and they learned coding and robotics and like pretty much like what you would expect us to know here. My kids didn't think that they would do this in Africa. Like, they have no idea. You know, they're like, the other picture that I showed you, that's what they think of. But this also exists, and it's right down the road. And so there's lots of things that you can talk about, you can learn about. What do you see when you look at this? What do you think of science-wise? Sound, right? Types of materials that can be used for different things, right? Because different types of materials make these different instruments, and how much space they have, how much they're hollowed out, will make different sounds. So those are all things that we can talk about with sound waves, pitch, all of those kind of things, frequency. Then you got, over here you've got music, so you can connect to, you know, sound waves. You could sing songs, and you could share those with the other school, and they could sing their music, and you could share those. You know, so you're learning about, like, the music part of it goes along with the standards of the sound, but yet students are doing something that some of them may not have. Like, we don't have a music teacher. We can't afford to have that as an elective in our school. So being able to bring something like this in and enrich their education while still meeting the science standards is golden for helping students be motivated for learning. And this just shows you a picture of me in the classroom. We were doing like a writing lesson describing the place that we came from. And then they have like an interesting setup at Victoria Falls Primary School. They do a half a day of academics, and then the other half of the day is like their electives. They have sports. So the kids are enrolled in a sport or drama, debate, something like that they can participate in the afternoons, and they take the kids different places and they compete. So it's really pretty cool because the kids are learning all different kinds of sports and things in the afternoon. And that time of the day when it's hard to get them to focus anyway, they have them doing the things that they really love the most. Oh, I went too far. That's just a picture to show you again. Here's the rural school. Right down the road. Here's the other school. And there's the room that I showed you at the beginning with all of those students. This is Eveline School for Girls. This school is amazing because it's a school for girls. It started out as a government school, which that's what they call the public schools there. It did not have very much funding, and it kind of started tanking. And so the government took it over, and this trust called Eden Springs Trust stepped in because they found out that a lot of these girls were being propositioned on the way to school for money as young as 2nd grade. And so the trust said, hey, wait a minute, we want the school. And they brought in counselors, psychiatrists, all of this support. They brought in business teachers to give these girls skills that they can learn a business trade so that when they get out, they're not just going to prostitution or child marriage, which is a big problem there. And they kind of like saved these girls' lives, basically. But this is showing you how little resources they have, that they're doing this experiment in front of the whole big class of students that they have. And you can talk with the students also about, like, why do they have so many fewer things than we do? You know, even though they live in a similar type of environment, why is it that they don't have materials? That's the back half of the room. Look how happy they are. That was like how they were. I mean, everywhere we went, they were happy. You would not think that these people that were living in these like really poor conditions, you wouldn't think they were poor. They don't know what poor is. Like, they were just like, this is life. Like, you know, they just loved being alive. Here's another example of their art that they're doing in that school for girls. Recycled materials, you can see where those are coming in. They made lots of things. They were selling their earrings. So, one of the girls gave me a pair that she had made. They would find like little pieces of things, and they would create these earrings out of them, glue all these found pieces together. There's an example of where they made a bead basket with recycled materials. And then this one up here, I guess you can see it, that was like cups that they had turned into a chandelier. And that was everywhere. Like when you went to the restaurants there, they had a lot of recycled materials that they had made things out of. This is the sewing school. that they got funding for through the trust. They brought in these sewing machines, and the girls that were a little bit older at the school were able to learn how to sew and make things for the market so they could have their own business. So you could talk about textiles, you could talk about, different types of materials and fibers, properties of those different things. This is the, one of the electives was a business marketing class that some of the girls could take. And they were really excited because they were selected for what's called the Youth Food Action Grant, because they were one of the top 5 champions in Zimbabwe when they went to compete for this Mystery Munch granola bar that they created. These girls decided that a lot of girls couldn't learn in the morning because they were hungry, they didn't have enough breakfast. So they decided to create these snack bars, and then the grant gave them money to actually mass produce them, package them, market them, and distribute them in their area, and they were in the grocery stores. So when the girls would go to the grocery store, their product was on the shelf. Yeah. And this is one of my favorite pictures because this girl and I became really good friends. Her name is Tandy. She still messages me now on WhatsApp. And she was an orphan. Both of her parents died because of inadequate medical care. And she was living with an aunt and uncle, and she was basically parenting her younger siblings. And so she decided to finish her time at the Eden Springs Trust and then go on to work in a job program that they have for girls that kind of bridges the gap between university if they're not ready. And it teaches them confidence skills and how to present themselves properly at an interview, all these different things about being a successful person when you go to college or when you're in business, how to not get taken advantage of. It gives them all the skills for that. And so she contacts me now because, I don't know, you ever meet someone and it's kind of like you just jive with that person, there's something about them that you like and they feel the same way. That's how it was with us when we met, and she just sat with me the whole time when we were there that day, talked to me, and she's like, can I have your WhatsApp number? And I'm like, sure. And now she's trying to come to the United States, and she's trying to get me to help her, which is a big deal, but she wants to go to university here and become a teacher so she can send money back home to her family. And that's the job site that the girls can work at when they're in this program. When they finish the program, they can either go to university or they can enter into working for the sewing factory that they have here. This is just our group of people. It was funny because when we went, our plane flight was canceled when we got there because it was overbooked, and so there's 42 of us trying to get to Zimbabwe. And so we ended up having to rent charter buses and take 6 different groups and 6 different flights. So we were arriving in different parts of the trip. So we all kind of had a little bit of a different experience. But honestly, if you want to go traveling, this is an amazing group to go with because they were so good about handling all of these bumps and everything worked out. We all had a great experience anyway. So there I am with Handy. So I included a link to these if you want to go back and look at anything later. But that was my experience. I'm going to give you some time to work with this packet. And I want you to just sort of think about anything that you saw today that you think goes with your standards that you might want to start a project on. And then maybe we'll have a little bit of time to kind of share what our ideas are, and I'll show you some of the resources that are on here. But I gave you a blank back page in case you don't want to write on this. But the link to this is also in there, so you can print it out later if you need to.
And just for the time check, we have 5.
We have 5 minutes. Wow, I talked a lot. I guess since we only have 5, does anyone want to share anything that they saw today that they can see themselves using with the way they already teach? Is there anything that kind of sparked an interest that you think, oh, I teach that, I could do
I would
it.
actually love to know what your driving question was when you brought this back into your
Yes. Let's look at that. So when I go to the agenda here, down under where we were just talking, this is my project proposal. Okay, so I did mine on soil, and what I did was I was teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science at the time. So I created a project, and each grade level did a part of it. So the first goal was to make global connections to the science standards that we're learning in middle grades, and the second goal was to develop an awareness of how we humans impact the quality of our own environment. Because if you teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science, you know each grade level has its own like air quality, water quality, soil quality, right? So I figured we'll just do all of those, and each of them can share with each other when they're finished. So we talk a lot about the importance of caring for the earth, but having examples of real life people who are struggling because they don't have what they need now is impactful to our students, because I feel like so many of them, even though they know that they should do things a certain way, they don't necessarily see a direct reason why, because we're not struggling the way that these people are struggling. But if we are not careful, we will someday. And it's hard for them to think about someday. So seeing how it's already happening in other places, I think, is really impactful.
Did you have to have this ready before you left? Or?
No. So you have the entire trip, and you have a few months afterwards. So we got back. We left for 2 weeks in, it was like the end of June through the beginning of July. And when we came back, we had until our middle of October meeting to create this, and we could collaborate in between. So it was like open collaboration with anybody that was working on it. So the essential question was, what lessons do the people of Zimbabwe have to teach us about our responsibility for taking care of the Earth's resources? So basically, what can we learn? And then I have the 6th grade standards here, which are the soil conservation and plant growth. So they're having some problems with growing things because of the type of soil that they have. And then the good health of humans requires monitoring the lithosphere, maintaining soil quality, and stewardship. And then we also talked about abiotic factors that were related to all of that, and the different biomes. 7th grade standards were waterborne pathogens, because they had a water purification problem, which is one of the biggest reasons why they have a lack of water there. It's not they don't have water, they don't have clean water. And then environmental influence on diseases if you don't keep the water clean, which kind of connects to what you have to learn in 8th grade. And then we learned about single-celled organisms, because we could get all of that from the water quality activities that we did. So I did some of the same labs that I normally did. Like, we still took water out of Lake Matamesquite and brought it back and looked at it under the microscope, and took water out of, like, the sink and looked at it under a microscope and compared them, and did testing of levels. So a lot of your same activities you can do as part of the structure of the project. And then the impact of the environment and lifestyle choices on biological inheritance. So diseases. How do we, environmentally created diseases versus genetic? 8th grade, it was water conservation, and then monitoring water quality in the hydrosphere and methods of water treatment, and then maintaining stewardship of safe water quality. And also we talked about characteristics of viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites, related to treatment and spread and prevention of disease. And then we talked about epidemic and pandemic, which the kids have a lot of connection to these days. And then careers also in biotechnology, because a lot of the solutions that they have come up with have had to do with creating GMOs for their plants that will be able to handle the bad soil quality, that kind of thing. So we worked on it between August and December, and the way I did it was, when I started the project, I focused on the project. That was mainly my initial lessons, and I would say we worked on just the project for a couple weeks, and then we came back to it at different points throughout the year and did little snippets here and there. Please use my email that's available on the agenda, and contact me if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you're working on that you want help with. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, does anybody want any extras to take to anybody? How many would you like? You guys have a great day. You too.
So I'm on my way home from the National Science Teachers Conference in North Carolina, and I won something. Like, I can't tell you how infrequently I win drawings, but I spun the wheel at the exhibitors hall and I won a Chick-fil-A gift card. So we're gonna find out how much is on here, and I'm gonna eat that and hopefully avoid rush hour before I leave town.